Reality is patterns, connection, information, and relationships. And when it comes to our lives, human society, or the human life world, I believe that the most important relationship, the one that everything springs forth from, our politics and culture, is the relationship between the masculine and feminine, this dynamic between men and women. And there is something particularly pathological taking place within our society. You could even say it's a bit psychopathic. We believe in this concept of assortative mating based on phenotype expression. To put it simply, we think that people should get together based on how they look. If you just peruse, the collective consciousness of our society, AKA social media, there's this idea of dating at your level, right? We see someone and we say that she doesn't belong with him or he looks too good to be with her. And this is some kind of psychotic, psychopathic perspective that we have adopted. And it is so deeply embedded within us, we think it's correct. We can't really see it being any other way, but it is lit and writ with error. I don't think I'm going out on a limb when I say that we can all feel the social fabric and cohesion of our society being tested or transforming, or some people even say that it's falling apart. There is this transactional type of mentality that we have when it comes to our relationships. Plato did say that the affairs of the heart and the affairs of the mind shouldn't be mixed. They shouldn't be intertwined, and that is for good reason. You shouldn't try to think logically when it comes to love. There shouldn't be some kind of numerical rating system that we put people on. When we say that she's a 5 or he's an 8 or this person is chopped, this is not healthy, but it is what we are doing. And I'm trying to guide us into a place where we see the sickness, where we see how this is some kind of neuroticism. It is some kind of society wide neurotic behavior. Ah. Now, I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with having standards, but there shouldn't be some kind of matrix that someone has to go through, some kind of Excel spreadsheet for them to be considered to be worthy. Picking a partner, this idea of pair bonding, it is an irrational process. Love is irrational, it is some kind of affair of the heart. And what we've done is we've taken love out of the picture. If you ask people, they will tell you this, that love doesn't pay the bills, right? That you shouldn't pair bond for love. You should do so for all of these other more logical reasons. And it is precisely for this reason why the social fabric of our society is in jeopardy. I believe that somewhere along the way we sort of lost the plot. We have forgotten why we pair bond in the first place. If you just pick someone based on phenotype expression, you are setting yourself up for failure. If you are a man, for example, because that's what I am, the woman that you pick will hopefully be the mother of your children. There are all kinds of intrinsic qualities that has nothing to do with, genetic phenotype that are extremely important. It's as they say that beauty is only skin deep and it is fleeting. It's like eating a hamburger. When I used to eat a hamburger, I just thought on some kind of low vibrational level. It is a form of thinking low vibrationally, animalistically. It's instant gratification. When I used to see a hamburger and french fries, I used to think delicious, I'll eat it. Now I'm able to see through that as you get older and mature. I don't simply see a hamburger that I want to consume. I see, you know, cholesterol. I see saturated fat content. I see diabetes, heart disease, limited mobility and freedom, weight gain, all of the other things, everything that happens after you consume it. And it's the same thing with our romantic relationships. You shouldn't see someone based on how they present. You should see this is going to be the mother or father of my children. Can I trust this person? Is this through sickness and health? Is this person mature enough to take care of me while I'm suffering? Are they going to abandon me? And if there's noise in the background, I apologize. This is all sort of an unscripted video. On this channel, I just want to come on here and rant about things that I see going on in society. And, I can't control the noise and all of the bugs crawling on me right now. But this is something that has been weighing heavy on my heart. And I want us to be better. I want us to do better, especially as I grow and mature in my own relationships. I have a girlfriend that I want to build a life with. And when I talk to all of my friends, when I talk to everyone else, they seem to be sick. They seem to be stuck. And I don't want that to be the case. There are plenty of eligible singles, right? Bachelors and bachelorettes who look logically, right? If you approach things through this left brain, analytic lens, on paper they look great. They have an 800 credit score. They have investments, right? They're in shape, right? They take care of their health. And on paper they look great, but there is some kind of stunted maturity. I say it's this irrational component of love. This part of them has been stunted and they don't understand what love is. It is the renunciation of love, as I mentioned. And a society that doesn't understand what love is sort of doomed to fail. I mean, you can just look across the board. Once a society enters into this transactional way of approaching relationships, that's where they end. We can talk about Japan and Korea, right? They are sort of the poster children for this sort of transactional way that they approach romantic relationships. And look at their population decline. And we sort of see that beginning to happen over here. This spirit of prostitution that has swept through the nation. And for as logical as we like to pretend to be, when it comes to the way that we approach romance and relationships, it's obvious it isn't working. They say the definition of insanity is to repeat the same thing, expecting a different result. This is this psychotic behavior that I'm talking about. It is very Machiavellian. It is very dark triad, and it isn't working. It's obviously impacting our mental health. And I don't want that to happen to us. I want better for us. And do I have the solution? Maybe. Stick around and find out. You may find the things that I say to be very helpful, but the way that it's going doesn't bode well for our future. And I do think that we need to learn how to love again. And if you're interested in that, consider subscribing and sticking around, and we'll explore all of this together. I just want to get on this channel and talk about this kind of stuff and talk about relationships as they relate to metaphysics. I guess you could say my field of study, my shtick is metaphysics, understanding relationships, which I go deep into, the real schizoid adjacent type of subjects over on my website called paramind.org. Link is in the description for it. And if you're interested in understanding, relationships, the relationship between men and women, the relationship between producer and consumer, parent and child. Reality is relationships. And as I mentioned in the beginning of this video, when it comes to the human life world, the relationship between men and women is the most important. And I want to talk about all of these different relationships and tie it all into metaphysics. And if you're interested in that, consider going over on Paramind. I'm confident that once you go over there and see what it's all about, you'll be able to better understand the opposite gender. That much I assure you. But that's all I'll say about that. This is an unscripted video, so I'll sign off here. And until next time, y'all have a blessed day.